Mohenjo-daro, one of the largest cities of the Indus Valley Civilization, built around 2600 BC. It was the most advanced city of its time, boasting remarkably sophisticated civil engineering and urban planning. However, around 1900 BC, Mohenjo-daro suddenly vanished. Why did this incredibly advanced city disappear so abruptly? The name Mohenjo-daro translates to Mound of the Dead in the Sindhi language, Mound of the Dead. Why was the greatest city of the Indus civilization given such an ominous name? Today, we explore the mystery of this enigmatic ancient city, a UNESCO World Heritage Site, known as the Mound of the Dead. The Indus Valley Civilization spanned across modern-day Pakistan and northwest India. Mohenjo-daro is located on the west bank of the Indus River, in the Larkana district of Sindh, Pakistan. It sits on a Pleistocene ridge in the floodplains, about 28 kilometers from the city of Larkana. For a long time, locals called it the hill where the dead sleep and feared to go near it. After 3,700 years of silence, the city was revealed to the world, starting with R.D. Banerjee in 1919 and large-scale excavations led by John Marshall in 1925. The more they excavated, the more shocking it became. The city was too sophisticated to be ancient. It was a planned city, with rectangular buildings arranged in a grid pattern, just like a modern metropolis. It featured a public bath known as the Great Bath, a collegiate hall with 78 rooms, perfect drainage systems, flush toilets, and even manholes. Along with this drainage system, Mohenjo-daro had over 700 wells. This figure is unprecedented compared to Egypt or Mesopotamia. It meant there was one well for every 3 houses. How did a high-tech city, so advanced compared to its neighbors, simply vanish into thin air? As excavations continued, archaeologists discovered strange anomalies. First, they found skeletons scattered across the streets. A total of 44 skeletons were recovered, but their positions were unnatural. They were not in graves, but lying in the middle of streets, on stairs, and by wells. It looked as if they died instantly, right where they stood, while fetching water or walking down the street. Some skeletons were found holding their heads with both hands. Others were found with parents holding their children's hands. Autopsies revealed no signs of trauma, no sword cuts, no blunt force injuries. There were no signs of looting or mass burial due to plague. They seemed to have died instantly while going about their daily lives. What on earth happened in that split second? The mystery deepens. Soviet researcher Alexander Gorbovsky presented a shocking analysis of these skeletons. According to his report, high levels of radiation were detected about 50 times the natural level. These figures are comparable to those seen in victims of a nuclear explosion. 50 times the natural level. Why would ancient skeletons bear traces comparable to the aftermath of a modern nuclear test? In the center of the city, something even more mysterious was found. Black glass minerals scattered on the ground. British researcher David Davenport collected these samples from the epicenter of destruction. At first glance, they look like ordinary stones, but they are actually soil and pottery shards, melted by extreme heat and fused into glass. Davenport sent these samples to the University of Rome for analysis. The results were startling. To turn rocks into glass like this, a sudden temperature of at least 1,500 to 2,000 degrees Celsius is required, considering a kiln is about 1,000 degrees, and lava is 1,200 degrees. Ordinary fires cannot melt soil into glass. 2,000 degrees is an unimaginable heat. How could such temperature cover the entire city naturally? First, we might suspect a volcanic eruption. However, geological surveys show this region is stable, with no history of volcanic activity. There are no layers of volcanic ash or lava. Then, what about a meteor impact? A meteor creates immense heat upon impact. But this theory has a fatal flaw. A meteor large enough to melt a city would leave a massive crater and shatter buildings. But as you can see, the walls of Mohenjo-daro are still standing. Only extreme heat swept through the city. If not a volcano or a meteor, where did this 2,000-degree heat come from? Engineer Albion W. Hart noticed a similarity. He recalled the White Sands Desert in New Mexico, the site of the first human nuclear test in 1945. There, the heat of the nuclear explosion melted the sand into green glass, known as Trinitite. Hart pointed out that the black stones of Mohenjo-daro are structurally very similar to Trinitite. No volcano, no meteor crater, but intense 2,000-degree heat. These conditions match the characteristics of an airburst, a nuclear explosion that occurs above the ground. How could we find Trinitite, a trace of modern nuclear weapons, in Mohenjo-daro from 2600 BC? What happened to the ancient people of this city? This mystery led British researcher David Davenport to a controversial conclusion. In his 1979 book, Atomic Destruction in 2000 BC, he suggested what he called the ancient nuclear war hypothesis. He believed that the vitrified stones were not a natural phenomenon, but evidence of an event he interpreted as resembling a prehistoric atomic explosion. Interestingly, the ancient Indian epic Mahabharata seems to describe this event. The text describes a weapon called Agneya, a single projectile charged with all the power of the universe. An incandescent column of smoke and flame, as bright as the thousand suns, rose in all its splendor. The description of the aftermath is even more significant. Corpses were so burned they were unrecognizable, and pottery broke without cause. Survivors threw off their armor and washed themselves in the river. After that, hair and nails fell out, and birds turned white, and food was poisoned. Throwing off equipment and washing in water, hair loss and contamination. This bears a chilling resemblance to modern radiation sickness and decontamination procedures. The records are not limited to the Mahabharata. Another epic, the Ramayana, describes a flying machine called Pushpaka Vimana. In the Ramayana, the Vimana is depicted as a golden celestial chariot, as vast as a city, moving at the speed of thought. Intriguingly, the word Vimana is the exact same term used today to describe the massive towers of South Indian temples. Ancient structures like the Brihadisvara temple call their central tower a Vimana, modeling them after the very chariots the gods used to descend from the heavens. Could it be that the ancients carved these colossal stones into the shape of temples, just to preserve the memory of those giant flying crafts that once dominated the skies? The specific mechanical descriptions of these crafts are even more startling. It states that the Vimana could ascend vertically or dive suddenly at the pilot's will, moving like a giant serpent of fire. This serpent of fire vividly brings to mind the long trails of exhaust and contrails left by modern jet engines. It is difficult to dismiss this as mere mythological fantasy, as the descriptions are overwhelmingly mechanical and bear a striking resemblance to the precision of modern aerial combat. And there is more. The Mahabharata provides a detailed account of an incredible ancient weapon launched directly from these Vimanas. It describes a single projectile, charged with all the destructive power of the universe, fired from the craft. The weapon emerged from the Vimana, stayed suspended in the air, and released a brilliance that blinded the eyes. The texts testify that it looked like a glowing iron mace, turning the entire sky blood red even before it struck the ground. Of course, there are scientific counterarguments. Some scholars claim the Trinitite found in Mohenjo-daro is just residue from lime kilns, or caused by ball lightning. Ball lightning is a rare phenomenon where high-energy plasma spheres float in the air. If these spheres swept through the city, they could melt rocks into glass upon contact. This has been reproduced in labs. However, this hypothesis has a fatal weakness. Ball lightning is extremely rare and local. Is it statistically possible for thousands of them to occur simultaneously and destroy an entire metropolis? Also, ball lightning cannot explain the high-level radiation found in the skeletons. Other theories suggest the skeletons were victims of an Aryan invasion or a great flood. But the lack of sword marks rules out invasion, and simple lightning or kilns cannot explain the widespread vitrification of the city. What do you think? Are we dismissing the warnings of the ancients as mere mythology? In 1945, Robert Oppenheimer quoted the Mahabharata after the nuclear test. "Now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds." Did he know that we might not be the first advanced civilization? The truth of Mohenjo-daro still lies buried under the hot sand, one of the largest cities of the Indus, an overly modern metropolis, rocks melted by 2,000-degree heat, and a sudden disappearance. The mystery of the Mound of the Dead, Mohenjo-daro, remains unsolved. If you enjoyed this visual journey, please like and subscribe for more mysteries.